Okay, I wanted to do a quick video on an improvement that we did in order to make repository configurations much more intuitive and much more easier for the user. Now, this improvement was done on system source code, right? And as you could see, now there are two tabs which allows the user to configure the repositories. Now, one is obviously the manual entry method, which we used so far. And the new is to import an organization. Now, this feature allows a user to import the necessary repositories and configure them for analysis just based on the organization. Now, in order to use this feature, you just need to provide your organization ID in GitHub, and using this URL, our the backend services would process and extract the repositories that are relevant to relevant for analysis. Now, when I say relevant and extracting the repositories, there is actually a catch. I'll show that in a minute. Now, as I mentioned, provide the URL, and once you click on extract the organization, this will basically extract all the repositories and the metadata. Now here, as you could see, we have successfully found extracted the repositories. Now, these repositories are organized into two, as relevant and suggested. Now, this is what I mentioned as being extracting the relevant repositories. Now here you could see from this repository, food and SE labs, we have deduced the system name based on the repository names and also some of the descriptions and the readmes that are available in there. Now, obviously that means in the backend we are using large language models to infer or deduce this information, whether what are the repositories that we can group together, or which are the repositories which are relevant to the system that this organization it might mainly be focusing on. Now, in this case, we have successfully deduced that this Fudan SE Lab is working on some sort of a microservices system mainly, which could be having multiple repositories, and therefore we are suggesting a system name called Fudan SE Labs dash microservices. Now, this is a suggested name, which could be updated. Whereas out of all the 60 plus repositories in that particular organization, some of which are actually private, some of which are public. I'll tell you in a minute how to configure this how to access both public and private repositories in an organization. But so far, we have been able to extract both of them, and here you've been pre-selected or suggested what could be the relevant repositories that you might want to analyze. Now you could see that we're suggesting 6 repositories, and if you look at the names, they are all train ticket, train ticket, train ticket. So we're basically have successfully grouped them into potentially one unified multi-repo system. And now if you given this relevancy, you are still allowed to select what are the repositories that you still would want to analyze. Now, in my case, I would let's say since we've only focused on the train ticket repository, let's just deselect these ones. Now, any selected repository will be highlighted in purple. Now, I'll get rid of these ones just to be sure that I don't analyze unnecessary ones. Now, for example, let's say among the suggested ones, which are not pre-selected, if you want to select any repository which you want to still consider in your multi-repository microservice system, you can still select them here as well. Now, for each of these repository, we are providing all the branches that are available for this particular repository. And under the hood, we are also considering the commit ID, that the latest commit ID, in order to populate as well, so that we have all the necessary information in order to move ahead with any of the analysis agents that we have available in the platform. Now, for example, I have only selected train ticket from this. Now, I would also want to maybe edit this name as train ticket, just so that it's much more clear and have context to the naming. Now, if I select confirm, now I have the repository that I've selected with all the necessary information to move forward. Now, this is what we have been configuring for all the different types of pipeline analysis and configurations that we have done so far in all the demonstrations so far. Now, this is what we have. Now, as I mentioned, in order to access these private repositories, one of the things that you need to know is that it is required to provide the GitHub token to both access the private repositories as well as to elevate any rate limitations that GitHub API might be enforcing. Now, in order to set that up, now obviously in this demonstration, for this demonstration purposes, I have already configured my GitHub token. But if you want to edit that, you can simply go ahead and give your GitHub token right here, right? And if you provide that, if you provide a valid one, this set token will be active and you can click on that. If you would want to delete a GitHub token, now remember, we only allow just one GitHub token to be set up at a time. And if you want to delete that too, you can just go ahead and delete that. Now, the interesting thing about this is, now I'll show you in a minute. Now, I'm going to be deleting my token, and let's go back to, yeah, localhost 300. Now, if I come back to the pipeline, now you see that it is actually prompting me to provide the GitHub token before I can move ahead with the analysis. Now, this is to make sure that you don't hit any brick walls or you miss out any private repositories which might be useful for analysis when we try to extract the repositories and configure it for you for the analysis.